protection sociale doit être vue non pas comme un fardeau sur l'économie, mais comme un ingrédient. Mais les pays rencontrent effectivement de nombreuses difficultés pour mettre en œuvre ce projet et garantir une protection sociale. Il y a une capacité parfois très limitée dans le chef, notamment des pays les moins avancés, qui n'ont pas nécessairement une administration suffisamment efficace pour mettre en œuvre ce système. C'est une première difficulté. Deuxièmement, les budgets sont parfois insuffisants. C'est vrai qu'on a des données qui sont relativement rassurantes, qui viennent des travaux de l'OIT, mais même si pour l'ensemble des pays en développement, en moyenne, la protection sociale est parfaitement finançable et abordable au regard du PIB de ces pays, il y a des pays pour lesquels la pauvreté est très étendue, le produit intérieur brut relativement faible, de manière telle que la garantie d'une protection sociale pour tous et pour toutes pèse effectivement sur la capacité pour les ressources publiques du pays de financer ce système. L'économie informelle a un poids important dans l'économie de ces pays. Or, cette économie informelle, elle ne permet pas de nourrir les finances publiques de ces États. Troisième difficulté, c'est que ces pays sont parfois des pays dont l'économie est très peu résiliente au choc économique, dont ils ne sont d'ailleurs pas toujours responsables, soit qu'il s'agisse de catastrophes naturelles, soit qu'il s'agisse d'une soudaine chute des revenus liés à leurs exportations ou d'une soudaine augmentation de leurs factures d'importation. Et pour ces pays fragiles, le vrai problème, c'est qu'ils n'ont pas la possibilité de prendre le risque de s'engager envers les populations dans l'incertitude où ces pays se trouvent de pouvoir soutenir, fiscalement parlant, le financement de ce système. Et puis, quatrième difficulté, c'est la concurrence internationale, reconnaissons-le, dans laquelle ces pays sont parfois pris encore. Parfois, les investissements sont attirés par des coûts du travail relativement faibles, en tout cas dans l'industrie très intense en main-d'œuvre qu'on a parfois dans certains pays. Alors, comment répondre à cela? Je ferai deux propositions. Premièrement, nous avons proposé effectivement un mécanisme international pour encourager les pays à mobiliser les ressources internes pour financer la protection sociale. Alors, qu'est-ce que nous avons proposé? Nous avons proposé effectivement un fonds mondial pour la protection sociale qui, en réalité, comprend deux volets. Un premier volet qui est un mécanisme de matching funds, de cofinancement pour appuyer les pays qui font des efforts pour eux-mêmes afin de doubler ces efforts par la solidarité internationale. C'est une nouvelle facilité de financement qui a été proposée à travers ce mécanisme et en amont de la conférence d'Addis Abeba sur le financement pour le développement, c'est une proposition qui a reçu, je le signale, le soutien du Parlement européen, l'ancienne législature, qui avait voté une résolution sur ces questions. Alors, l'autre aspect de ce mécanisme, c'est un mécanisme de réassurance. L'idée n'est plus ici de financer des pays en développement qui veulent mettre sur pied un programme de protection sociale qu'ils n'arrivent pas à financer par leurs propres moyens, mais de permettre à ces pays de s'assurer contre le risque que leur système de protection sociale ne soit pas finançable en raison de tel ou tel choc qu'ils subissent. Ma deuxième proposition consiste à imposer à toutes les sociétés qui prétendent écouler leurs marchandises en Union européenne un devoir de vigilance dans la chaîne d'approvisionnement pour s'assurer que leurs fournisseurs respectent le droit du travail, enregistrent ces travailleurs, payent la protection sociale, les contributions à la sécurité sociale qui sont à payer selon la législation interne, pour éviter, au fond, que les entreprises qui sont les moins disantes en matière sociale, au fond, ne bénéficient d'un avantage concurrentiel sur les marchés. Il me semble que c'est le moins que l'on puisse attendre de l'Union européenne, que d'encourager les acteurs économiques qui veulent exporter vers l'Union européenne de surveiller le respect du droit du travail, y compris du droit à la sécurité sociale dans l'ensemble de la chaîne d'approvisionnement.
Some EU leaders believe that social protection is something that only prospering nations can afford. That is not true. Countries like Germany, Britain or France, they have actually built their social protection system long before they have reached today's level of prosperity. So reducing inequalities and poverty must be very high on the agenda. The inequalities between and within countries are still very high and are growing in advanced economies and developing countries. But data shows that social protection policies do indeed slow this trend. With this level of inequality, it is impossible to think or to talk about sustainable development or growth of any kind. So how to finance social protection system? That's the question. Tax-based systems are better for fighting poverty because they serve everybody and not only those people who have actually paid their contributions. Domestic resources are and will continue to be the largest source of financing for developing countries, but the average tax to GDP ratio in developing countries is still too low. It is essential that steps are taken to ensure that tax collection becomes more predictable, more stable and robust, and that all parts of society, individuals and companies, pay according to their means. Combating tax avoidance and evasion can result in significant gains in revenue, in revenue mobilization in developing countries. However, there are some limits to what an individual government can accomplish on their own in a globalized economy. The recent strengthening of international cooperation is not fully inclusive. That's what we said clearly in the report of the Parliament voted last July in the plenary, and does not prioritize sustainable development and full participation of developing countries on an equal footing. So we suggested an action plan to the Commission with some instruments that we can use in order to help. First of all, much more support is needed in terms of financial and technical assistance to the tax administration and regional tax administration frameworks in developing countries. Second point, we really need country-by-country reporting as a standard for all companies in all sectors, especially companies extracting natural resources. Another point is the automatic exchange of information. It's a very fundamental tool for enhancing global transparency and cooperation, but it is also important that when framing these instruments, we keep in mind the particular needs of developing countries. Most of the world's tax treaties are based on the OECD Model Tax Convention. When negotiating tax treaties, we think that the UN model should be preferred because it would avoid the risk to have bias towards developed countries' interests and to ensure a fairer distribution of taxing rights. And last but not least, of course, impact assessment. EU's tax and transparency regulation have never been subject to an evaluation assessing their impact on developing countries. And then, yes, of course, what about Addis? The recently adopted Addis Ababa Action Agenda recognizes social protection as one of the core cross-cutting areas where initiatives are needed in order to be able to achieve the SDGs. Addis made the point that domestic public finance should be at the heart of all countries, and that is also true. And we need to increase the fiscal space to successfully implement the SDGs, particularly on the social issues.
The question of affordability. If you look back kind of 10 or 20 years ago, the discussion was very much on whether poorer countries could afford social protection. And the idea that, well, let them grow first and then at some point they will be able to afford that luxury. Now the question is the reverse. Can poorer countries afford not to have social protection? Really, social protection is an essential part of any development policy. And of any economic and social policy. Having a kind of a certain limited percentage of GDP, that sounds very nice, but if you look at the fiscal capacities of many countries where you have a kind of a government budget of 10 or 15% of GDP, obviously this is not something that you can introduce from one day to the other. So obviously the choices have to be made on how to do it. And that's not just a technical question. This is also very much a political question, because this is all about the political will that goes with it. We're looking at the sustainable development goals and the commitments of Addis, etc. But I still want to highlight also that with the recommendation on social protection floors that was adopted in 2012, although it's a non-binding instrument, it gives very detailed guidance on how these social protection floors can be put in place to ensure at least a basic level of coverage for everyone. It has not only been agreed by governments, but it has also agreed by workers' representatives and employers. And these are the ones who also finance quite a lot of social protections. I think there's a lot of untapped potential in countries to have a fair tax system, to broaden the tax base, to make sure that those who have obligations to pay taxes, because I mean that's the only way that you can really make sure that you have a sustainable social protection system in place.
We will all be ambassadors of these new goals. We have to push for an EU strategy for implementation of the SDGs and also at the national level, because it means that the implementation can only work if it is inclusive. The national parliaments of these developing countries, they have to be able to monitor the budget expenditures and how these revenues they are spent. But on the other hand, we mentioned also the importance of civil society organizations and NGOs, because in many cases it's about your work, it's about what you can do to, of course, make this thing public and then help us to put forward a pressure to the government.
I'd like to highlight one point, the question of moving that from the idea that social protection is a cost to the fact that it's an investment. Making sure that social protection helps people to become be more healthy, be more educated, become kind of more productive in the longer run, which has a very strong link also to the discussion about how to foster transition from the informal economy to the formal economy, which I think is an important precondition for having kind of sustainable social protection systems in the longer run. That should not mean that social protection should only be for those in the informal employment. Not at all. I think the recommendation have a very clear kind of two-track approach, if you want. On the one hand, really emphasizing universal coverage for all, and also using the contributory capacities of people for those who can actually contribute to the system, but at the same time also then allowing them to have higher levels of protection.
The debate on the funding of social protection in developing countries is one that is not closed with Addis Abeba's agenda. It is a campaign that will take years, but I believe it is worth fighting for. But certainly there is a need for one government to champion this cause. And I'm convinced that it is feasible, technically feasible. All that matters is to have political will.
The old narrative that we can't afford social protection systems to the new narrative which is we can't afford not to have them. That battle's not won. We had some really important and useful proposals and suggestions, from a trust fund to where ODA assistance can be very clearly targeted and channeled to support tax collection systems, to support social protection systems and their setting up. I think there was a very interesting and important reflection on the importance of participation of parliaments, but also the general public and civil society in the whole discussion on not only tax collection, but how those taxes are spent. And I think that's something that obviously we all very much support in civil society. And that's very much in line with these new sustainable development goals, which were the product of much more participation. And frankly, their success will stand or fall on the extent to which we are all, in the general public, in civil society, involved in monitoring and pushing for the implementation of those goals.